Hey everyone, welcome back to the Let's Talk podcast with me and David, aka Shamrock Balls. And today we're going to be talking about my favorite film of all time, The Terminator. Now, this is probably like the third or fourth show dedicated to this one film, but the only big difference is my friend here, David, has actually never talked to me one on one about this movie. And I know he loves this movie as well, right, David?
Yeah, that's right, John. So, see, before we start, can I just ask you what day it is?
The date.
12th May, Thursday.
What year?
And we're really close to that, actually. It's not
Is it?
quite May 12th. I think today's the 15th.
Is it the 15th or the 14th? I thought it was that. Oh, it's the 14th.
It's the 14th.
It's the
You just missed
14th.
it.
You just missed it. 14th May, Tuesday.
No, the year. What is the year?
Uh,
What?
yeah. Look, listen. I absolutely love this film the bits. This is one of my top 10 movies of all time, and has been since the first time I've seen it. I must have seen this movie when I was like, I think I was about 9 years of age, around 1990, maybe early 91, because or it might have been a wee bit earlier than that, because I definitely seen this movie before Terminator 2, when we knew anything about a Terminator 2, or before we even knew that a Terminator 2 was in production. So I seen this film really, really young, and it's one of those ones where, like I said about RoboCop, I don't know why my parents actually let me watch it, but there's certain movies, John, when you're growing up that I don't know if it's the same for you, that you remember, like if you're a movie fan, you remember the first time you seen them, right? So there's a handful, and this is definitely one of the movies for me that I remember the first time I seen it.
Yeah, I'm 100% the same way. And I think a lot of that is actually why this movie is my favorite film of all time. Is I've told the story here on the channel before, so longtime viewers will know this, but I saw Terminator 2 first, actually. I watched it on a Saturday. They used to have this thing on Pix 11 here in New York. They did Saturday morning movies or Saturday afternoon. It was just a rainy Saturday, and we weren't doing nothing. My parents were divorced, so I was with my dad. Watched Terminator 2 on TV. And I told my mom that I watched it because my mom's the one who likes movies. My dad doesn't care. So I told my mom, and she's like, "Well, now you got to see the first Terminator." Mind you, I'm like 7 years old. So we go to the library, and I remember the black VHS box, and it just said it's just completely black with an index card inserted that said "The Terminator 1984" on it. And I took
Boss.
that home, and that was the first time I ever watched the Terminator on VHS, and I mean a bad VHS, but I love the movie. But at the time, I'll be honest, being younger, Terminator 2 was my favorite for a long time till I grew up.
Yeah, so I had a completely different experience. As I say, I remember that I must have been annoying my mum or something. It was a Sunday, early afternoon, and I must have been annoying her because she was in the dining room, and I remember her saying to me, "Why don't you go in the living room and watch that movie with your dad? It's really good." So she must have already seen it, or she stayed up to see it or something, because they'd recorded it off the television. It was on really late, and I did. I went in and I sat down with my dad and I watched The Terminator, and I absolutely loved it. Now, keep in mind, but at that stage, I was as we've discussed before, absolutely obsessed with Jaws. And I'd seen all the Jaws movies, and the only one at that time I had on VHS, which was taped off the television, was Jaws 2. I didn't have any of the other Jaws movies. So now we had the Terminator on VHS, and I commandeered that VHS after watching it for the first time. And I must have watched that every weekend for months on end. I absolutely loved it. And to the point where I was a big fan of Lego and had lots of Lego, where I would make a T800, the wee Lego man. I would cover him in blue tack, and I had like a wee Lego motorcycle, and I would play the Terminator with the Lego. And as uh, he was getting shot up by Kyle Reese and stuff like that, you would take bits, I would take bits of the blue tack off, revealing the yellow Lego man underneath, and that was supposedly the endoskeleton. So I absolutely love this movie.
I can't believe you did that. And that takes some talent because I never could do that with Legos, make anything out of anything. I played Lincoln Logs. I was always better with that. I don't know if you remember Lincoln Logs, but
No, I hadn't heard of Lincoln Logs.
Yeah,
Is
then
that
just imagine just a bunch of like things kind of like Legos, but they hook together and they're just logs. So you build like big log cabins with it. I always was more
right?
I was better at that than Legos. I don't know why. Legos and me, we just didn't blend well. We thought so but there was no way I was making a T800 out of Legos. But I got a question for you because we've talked about this on the show. Um, your parents were a little bit more strict about the movies you watched. It's weird that
Yes.
they let you watch the Terminator.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing that I just, I don't understand why there were certain movies that they let me watch and other ones they were very strict about. I mean, I think I discussed this with you very briefly off air after one of our podcasts. Was that there was an horrific event that happened in Great Britain in the early 90s where a toddler was murdered by two young children. And there was talk in the papers at the time it was to do with video nasties because they found a video of Child's Play 3 in their home, and apparently they were watching it before they went out and done this. So I always remember, and I was the same age as those kids that actually murdered that toddler. So I remember at the time my parents kind of saying to me, you're not allowed to watch anything that's not your age anymore. And actually kind of arguing with them, kind of watch Terminator, kind of watch Jaws, things like that. And I remember them saying Jaws was fine, but Terminator wasn't. This was after the fact. This is after me watching it so many times anyway. But I think, as I said to you before in some of our other podcasts, like a lot of these movies that I was watching through the late 80s and early 90s, they were on television. They were edited down, and some of them were on maybe in the afternoon, or they were on in the early evening or late evening. And I had older brothers as well, so I would say that the older brothers I had were a heavy influence on kind of how my tastes developed as I got older. I mean, I only had brothers, I had no sisters. I mean, Disney wasn't really a thing in my house. We didn't watch really Disney movies. So I always tell people that Steven Spielberg was my Walt Disney because I grew up watching a lot of his movies. So, as I say, this was the movie that I was obsessed with for a while, and really loved this movie before a Terminator 2 was even talked about. And of course, different times back then, we didn't have the internet enough. And I just remember speaking with my friends. My cousin was a big Terminator fan and talking about that, getting excited about a Terminator 2 coming out. We couldn't wait. There's going to be a sequel because back then as well, John, coming out of the 80s and getting into the 90s, as kids, we were all used to the sequel syndrome, as they call it. We didn't differentiate between a Beverly Hills Cop 2 or a Jaws 2. Do you know what I mean? Inferior sequels, although people might say Beverly Cop 2 is better than the first one, but but there were inferior sequels, but we didn't differentiate. We didn't care. If it was a second or a third in a series, we loved them all equally because we didn't critique in that type of way. So we're very excited about a sequel coming along.
And you guys must have been surprised as hell because at the time that sequel, blew the original one out of the water in every single way, as far as even the budget and how everything looked. And I mean, the original teaser trailer for Terminator 2 is iconic when it's revealed that, like, the production line of the Terminators. I love seeing that. But, that all circles back to the original one, which, it's
Yeah,
7 years between the original and the second, which is pretty long time. I guess they did the same thing with Alien and Aliens. That's 7 years too. So I guess
yeah.
it's weird because Beverly Hills Cop used that example. I think it's only 3 years. So it's weird that Terminator took so long to get a sequel. You would think that James Cameron and Arnold would want to do it again, but I don't know. They just took, I guess, the stars to align.
I think it was actually to do with the rights. There was an issue with it was a rights issue.
Is that so? That actually circles back to this movie being produced, which is what it's got a screenplay credit to Gillian Hurd and James
Yeah,
Cameron, but they both actually James Cameron wrote the whole thing. Gillian Hurd just made some suggestions, and they were married, so I'm sure that he took some of those suggestions. But she produced the movie too. She worked for Roger Corman, which you could see the bones of this being R.I.P. Roger Corman just passed away. But you could see the bones of this movie and why people would write it off originally as being like a B movie because its plot, the
yeah.
effects. You would think like, okay, this is just a B movie about a cyborg. Plenty of those come out in the 1980s. But then you watch it, it's a lot more than just that.
Oh yes, I mean, it goes back to what we were saying about the likes of RoboCop and even Alien to a certain extent. Whereas this movie has layers. It's the human element that actually I think makes it endure. That what we can relate to, but at its essence, at its core, it's straightforward kind of narrative of a killer is trying to take out this woman, and that's basically it. But it's everything that's happening around it, with the layers of the exposition of what's at stake that you get more invested in. Let's put it like this. I would say that James Cameron is heavily influenced in this movies like Halloween and Westworld. Yeah, I watched Westworld for the first time, I don't know what it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I couldn't believe how similar the ending of that movie is to the first Terminator movie.
James Cameron definitely took some stuff, and I believe it's also the Outer Limits episode that he's even said that it inspired him. But didn't they sue him too because it
Yeah,
was like too similar? And it's like I feel like James Cameron at the end, he does take inspiration from a lot of places. You notice it. I mean, I've said it for years with the Avatar movies. They're basically just Dances with Wolves and Pocahontas, similar stories.
yeah,
It's nothing too different. It's not, I don't think that James Cameron is this like he's more of a director and a filmmaker than he is a writer. I think he's a good writer, but I don't think he's the greatest writer of all time. I definitely think that he takes some assistance and he knows how to write more blockbusters than actually deep movies.
yeah.
Which is weird that this one is pretty thought provoking in comparison to his other stuff.
Yeah, and look, I love a lot of James Cameron movies, but I have to say myself is that when I watched his movies growing up, and because they're of my era as well, and he's made some of the most exciting movies of all time. But to be honest with you, once you start kind of like branching out and watching older movies and that might have similar themes, then you can see his influences. Like I've always said about Titanic, it's Romeo and Juliet on a ship, but Titanic to me is it's a remake of A Night to Remember, and people will say, well, yeah, well, it's based on a true story, but no, if there was hundreds of stories to be told that night on that ship, and you can actually see that he is taken inspiration from that motion picture, which was based on Walter Lord's book, A Night to Remember. So it's the same for me with the Terminator. You can see where he has been heavily influenced by Westworld, and even Arnold's performance, you can see, is influenced by Yul Bremner. Is that what you call him?
Yeah, Yul Brenner.
Yul Brenner, yeah. And then, of course, you have Halloween as well, which I do believe that Cameron did at one stage admit that was one of his influences. So think about it. Switch out the Terminator for Michael Myers. It's nearly the same character.
An
Only,
unkillable, instead of it being a machine, it's a person in Michael Myers, but it's got one goal, and it wants to kill Laurie in that movie, and in this movie, it wants to kill Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor.
yeah, and
It's on a mission.
switch out the kitchen knife for a couple of guns.
Yeah.
Obviously the Terminator is more action orientated and stuff like that, but just this, as you say, unstoppable force. And Michael Myers doesn't really talk, or doesn't talk at all, doesn't he? Not, and you know what I mean. And he's just got this, because of the mask, it's this blank look on his face, and I can see those similarities. But as you said, yes, I haven't seen the Outer Limits episode, but James Cameron, the guy that wrote that Outer Limits episode, I think, what's it called? Do you know what you call that Outer Limits episode?
I'm not too sure, but I think it's something with a cyborg.
Something like future war or something like that. It's called.
Yeah, and honestly, I haven't seen the episode, but I've read about the episode, and it's pretty hard to debate that. And he said, James Cameron, in interviews before the movie came out, that he was inspired by the Outer Limits. So there's no way he didn't see that episode. Like sometimes there's some plausible deniability, but I don't think there really is in this case.
Well, that's put it like this. It didn't get as far. I don't think it got as far as court. They actually paid the guy, and they ended up having to put a credit in for him. With saying with thanks.
Yeah, which if that's what you did, you should do that. You could argue that, well, because we didn't go to court, you could say, well, if you gave him money, looks a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, exactly. I think I don't know. I don't know how these things work. I've never looked too much into it, but it's either a lawyer's going, look, it'll be easier for you just to say, give him a credit and pay him this, and that's it. It's forgot about, because maybe you're going to go to court and it's going to look bad, or you're going to lose and you're going to have to pay out a lot more. Or you might have to give him a share of the movie. You might have to give him a share of the rights as well. It's going to end up worse for you. So you don't know how these things work out, but I think that you're right. There is layers to this movie, and the layers to the movie is the whole kind of the future war element, the nightmarish future, the humanity side of it, the fact that this woman has to be saved or we're all doomed because our son is the future savior. As you say, it's thought provoking, and the whole thing is a paradox as well.
And the fact that this movie is so, like you said, it still stands the test of time because we're still talking about this today with artificial intelligence. We were talking about in the 1980s. It's incredible that they were so ahead on this. Of course, nobody listened to the movie, but yeah, how ahead they were in 1984 about this. And, going back in time, that would make sense to go kill the mother of the savior. They're not going to be able to go forward, and that will definitely stop this. What I love, though, is when they go back to 1984, they got to deal with 1984 technology, which is another big reason why I love this movie. And he's got to walk up to a phone booth, go in there, look at the yellow pages, and all he knows is a name. So it's like, shit, there's 3 Sarah Connors. All right, I'll start from the top.
But John, that Terminator was just being systematic.
Yeah, I love that. But I guess we should jump to casting because we were talking about Roger Corman. We got to talk about Kyle Reese, played by Michael Biehn. But one of the people that was, that interviewed for the role or was auditioned for it, we know O.J. Simpson. But another one I thought was fascinating was Mel Gibson.
Oh, right.
And I honestly can see that because I actually just rewatched the first 2 Mad Max movies, Mad Max and Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. First of all, I'm not a big fan of those movies. I just got to accept it at this point.
Oh, do you know what? I don't think I've really ever seen a Mad Max movie. I was one of them, once again, it was always on TV when I was a kid, and I only seen bits and pieces of it, and it never appealed to me. So I've never went back and watched them.
Nah, they don't really appeal to me either. They're so straightforward action movies, and I appreciate all the effects and all the, that's all practically done, and the car crashes are great. But watching them, Mel Gibson doesn't have many lines in these movies. He's wearing sunglasses and leather, and he's just walking around with a gun, driving a black car, and you could see, looking at that guy, he would work great in the Terminator movie, and then knowing how he would be in the Lethal Weapon movies, I could definitely see him being Kyle Reese. I don't know if I could see him being a Terminator, but I could
Yeah.
see him being Kyle Reese.
Yeah. Well, see, can I just say about technology, just touch on that a second? And then we'll go into what I think about the casting so far. And the thing is about technology in the 80s as well. This was a time when we, as you say, technology was starting to evolve at a very quick rate, and we were all, I mean, the home computer was starting to come into the home, and not so much in Ireland, but I know it was being promoted in other Western parts of the world, especially like the States and stuff. We probably wouldn't be getting home computers maybe for another 15 years or whatever, 20 years. But we really started becoming reliant we were starting to become reliant on it, I think, in the 80s more so than ever. And of course, nowadays we are totally in reliance on machines and all the rest. And that is a scary, scary prospect. I actually remember when I had the Terminator 2 DVD the first time I got it, and usually had loads of special features on it. And there was this one that you could read about AIs, and it's the first time that even though I was a fan of these movies and I was a fan of RoboCop and things like that, but it was the first time it was in my early 20s, whatever. I started thinking about AIs as a concept of relying on these things day to day and putting your life in their hands, and it was actually quite scary.
Yeah, when you really break it down, it's not as fun as like a movie will make it seem. It's like, no, we are totally reliant. Everything we do runs through a phone now. Like that's
Yeah.
essential in 2024, which is crazy that a piece of technology has to be on your person at all times, or you really can't function. Like I know I'm very reliant on GPS because I will not get around in my car without some sort of navigation system.
Yeah, John, it's everything we do now. When you think about it, I work on a job where I need to use a computer every single day. We rely on, for example, the internet. Me and you wouldn't be doing this now if it wasn't for the equipment that we have on our internet. And even my heating is run through my internet, banking systems, everything else. Now, I think that the technology we have in this day and age is phenomenal. It's brilliant. And I think a lot of it has made people's lives a lot more easier, a lot more comfortable. But there is a very, very dark side that comes with that technology. And I think that back in 1982, 83, that's exactly what James Cameron tapped into, was that dark side of technology, that if we put too much trust in that technology, if we are a wee bit ignorant to that technology, we don't safeguard it, if we don't cherish it, you know what I mean, and treat it the right way, that things could go very bad very quickly. So that's what I get from this movie as well. To touch on the casting, you're saying about you could see Mel Gibson as a really good Cade Reese. I think that obviously originally it was going to play Bishop in Alien, and he's in the
Oh,
Terminator.
Lance Hendrickson.
Yes, so the idea for, I'm sure you know this,
Yeah, the
for
great story for the how he pitched it.
yeah, well, the whole idea for the Terminator was that he was that he would blend in, that he wouldn't be this big hulking guy, that he wouldn't stand out of the crowd. And that was James Cameron's original idea for the Terminator, which makes sense if you're going to be an infiltration unit. However, when he met Arnold, and Arnold actually wanted to play the Terminator, and his agent was advising him against it because he was like, "You're going to be the bad guy, Arnold. You can't be the bad guy." And obviously, the Terminator really made Schwarzenegger into a big star. But for me, as a young person, even I don't know what it would feel like as an adult watching it, but as a young person watching this, the fact that Arnold was this hulking guy, and before I kind of knew what the movie was about, I mean, you got to remember when I first seen this movie, I knew nothing about this movie. I didn't know anything about it, right? So I didn't know he was a machine. And the fact that he was able to lift guys and throw them and pull guys out of the telephone, and things like that, I believed that this was just a big, muscle-bound, strong guy. If it was a small guy doing it, you would start maybe asking more questions, I think.
Yeah, and originally, yeah, like you said, the original intention was not only to have a smaller guy that could blend in, and then like O.J. Simpson was originally supposed to be the Terminator because but they couldn't believe it because they didn't think he could actually do it, which is insane that happened. And
Yeah.
then you end up with Arnold, and I think James Cameron said the voice also actually really helped him, because it
Yeah.
does seem like a cyborg.
Your clothes. Give them to me.
He's not going to be an infiltration unit. There's no way he's sneaking around. Arnold stands out in the crowd, but you do find it more believable, all the stuff that he can do because of how big he is. You'd think that there could be a metal skeleton under this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And even when he punches through the windscreen as well, which,
Oh my God.
yeah, I don't think, you would probably break your hand, no matter what size you were, but you could believe that a guy that size could punch through, but you wouldn't believe a guy my size could punch through. You know what I mean?
No, I wouldn't. Like, that's the thing. That it would be more surprising, which they would revisit in Terminator 2 with Robert Patrick being the T-1000. Like when they're facing off against each other, and you find out he's a Terminator, it's like, okay, that's a regular looking guy who can do all this stuff. And then obviously the liquid Terminator thing he wanted for the original Terminator, but the technology wasn't there, and it really wasn't there. So I'm glad they didn't even attempt it.
I really, I don't, you know what, I hope, I'm sure we will do Terminator 2 one day, so I would hate to touch too much on it, but the thing is that Robert Patrick was brilliant as the T-1000, but the original idea or the thought at the time might have been to bring Michael Biehn back, and he was going to be the T-1000, and that would have been absolutely amazing.
That's a great idea. Can you imagine Sarah's response to seeing Michael Biehn trying to kill her now as a T-1000? They just took like the skin, like they took a skin model of it and put it over it. Because I'm actually surprised they never addressed. I mean, they kind of have with the T-1000, where it's able to change bodies, but it would be cool. But they have to see them. So if she never sees Michael Biehn, there's no way to do it. But that would have been absolutely awesome. And Michael Biehn is great as Kyle Reese. He's always what I think of when I think of Michael Biehn.
I'm Reese. Sergeant TechCom, BN 38416, assigned to protect you. You've been targeted for termination.
Yeah, yes. Just obviously back to more of the casting in this movie, because I'd hate to go talk too much about T2 because I'd love to do that some stage, mate. But yeah, look, like all the great films, the casting in this movie is perfect. I can't imagine anybody else in any of these roles in this movie, apart from maybe the cop at the start who talks about the date.
Oh yeah, I know. He hit. Honestly, you can cue that, and then the other cop gets his head blasted into the cop car, probably dead. Like, and he just takes him and just boom, and just drops him on the ground. And he's like,
but
poor guy.
But he's the co-writer.
Yeah, they just gave him that role, very small role, which is really funny. But I think about it because I think about the one line where he's like heading over Olympic and he's punching lights the entire way, and I'm like, wow, okay. And but it does seem a little forced. It always sticks out in my head.
yeah, and then he appears in the second one as well.
Yeah, different role, which is really funny.
Different role. But I always imagine he's the same guy.
Maybe he survived that, and he's like, "I'm off the force now."
Yeah, and that's why he's like, "Where's your man who knocked me off the car
Yeah.
10 years ago? I recognize him."
Yeah, I love that aspect of T2. Again, I know we're not talking about T2, but I love them bringing the pictures back from Terminator 1 in the police station.
Do you know what? I love that too. And I used to think that they were actual pictures from the first movie, and then I found out that was when I was I don't know if it was in the making of documentary or read it somewhere. That was the first thing that they shot for T2 was doing Arnie up as the T800 from the first movie, and building a small hall like the police station, and just taking photographs of it
I
to
know.
put in T2. It's
And
amazing.
it looks amazing. You really don't notice it. That you would think that's right from that, which is weird that they wouldn't do it. Maybe
Yeah,
the technology wasn't there and it would look too pixelated. I'm not too sure why they couldn't just take screen grabs. But
yeah.
yeah, but either way, it works perfectly. I love that they do that. Like this is the same guy. I'm showing you him. I love how she's just like she knows, but she's like, they're not gonna believe me. I've tried everything.
No, her mind at that stage is just I'm getting out of here. But touching on like Arnold in this movie, look, I think Arnold's been in some really good movies. Obviously, T2, he's brilliant in T2, and I love him in Predator as well and Commando. You know, apart from Terminator, I think Predator might be his best role, and then maybe some of his comedy roles after that. That's my personal opinion. But I think his performance in this is on point. He was genuinely scary. He used to genuinely scare me in this movie, his performance.
You know, it's petrifying. He does his role perfectly. And then honestly, you believe him as a machine. And he
Yes.
does most of the movies without his eyebrows. So whenever he doesn't have the sunglasses on, it's scary as hell too. It's funny though,
Yeah.
because early in the movie, like when he's walking around in the punk's outfit, I'm like, it's weird. We end up with the leather when we get to the leather and the sunglasses, that's the iconic Terminator look. And it's
Yeah.
funny that we get that early part in the movie when he kills the first Sarah Connor, just that outfit that he's wearing, even I guess the AI approved it, but I'm like, this doesn't fit. You hear like the men in the boots walking around and the sound effects, which great foreshadowing is when he runs over the truck that looks like the truck from end of the movie. So that's always cool.
Yeah, it is. It is really good foreshadowing there, and you're right. The punk look. I think when people think of the Terminator, they never ever think of the punk look. But you're right. It's almost like once he puts that leather jacket on, the shades, he has arrived as the Terminator. And since then, like even the first movie, or sorry, the second movie, right away, he's right in the leather from the start. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, let's go with a jean jacket or you know what I mean, or a bomber jacket, then we'll move him to a leather jacket later. It's just like, no, that's his look now. Even on the poster as well, you know what I mean? The glasses, the gun, the leather jacket. That's his look. And you're right. And my favorite scene in this whole movie has to be when he goes into that police station and does
Oh,
take out all the cops, because I touched on it briefly in the RoboCop episode because I knew we were going to do Terminator at some stage, John. And I said about RoboCop going into the drugs bust. You know, it's showing you what RoboCop can do to take out a whole gang of bad guys. Well, in this movie, when he goes into that police station, he is going in to do what he is built to do, and that is just to kill. And he doesn't take a step back. And without a doubt, I remember somebody actually asked me, we were at a Christmas dinner one night, a guy I work with, and he knew he was in the movies, and he says, what do you think is what's the three best scenes in cinema history? And I said, well, no particular order, the shower scene in Psycho, Quint's Indianapolis speech, have to have that in there, and the third was the Terminator when he goes into the police station.
That's my favorite scene in the movie too, and it's for the exact same reasons. First of all, it's petrifying. Nobody can get out of there, and they think it's a human. So they're all these cops, like they finally build up the courage to try and shoot him, and he just kills them all so fast. Like you're shooting at him, but you think he just takes the electric out, you know, busts it into that part so that everything explodes, and they're just
Yes.
shooting him the whole time. And he just like slight stutters, and then he just goes back to killing them right after he does that one little thing. Even like our
Yeah.
Lance Henderson and the Chief, who I really love, they do seem like they have a good chemistry as regular cops. The coffee's twice cold. He's like, I put a cigarette out there, and he's just still drinking it. Like they seem like tired cops, all that
Yeah.
stuff, and then you feel bad when they go down because they never had a shot. Like they are so mismatched against this guy. Only Kyle Reese even says it with these weapons. I don't know. Like that's how strong he is. Like nobody, a whole arsenal can't take this guy out.
Yeah, do you know what? You're right. Them two are great. I would love to see like a prequel cop show with them two in it, just catching regular criminals. I love when he says, Lieutenant Traxter, is that what he's called? He says he was going out to face the media, and he says to Lance Henriksen, how do I look? And he says, like shit. And he says, yo, mama.
I love that.
Yeah, but like I had another great dialogue between the two of them as well is like when Lieutenant Traxter he's trying to calm Sarah down, like saying, look, Kyle Reese is crazy, and get some sleep in that couch. Your mom's coming down. I'll take her over an hour to get here, and that couch is really comfy. It doesn't look it, and we've got 30 cops in this building. But before that, not she's saying about, well, how about when he punched through the windscreen, and he's like, he must have been on PCP, and he says, "Do you see that scar there?" And he just hands him the flat jacket and goes,
Yeah.
here, and he's like, okay, and he just turns and walks off. In other words, nobody wants to hear your story.
Because he's probably heard that story 1,000 times working with this guy. He's like, Jesus Christ, here he goes again. They have like a good back and forth, the two of them. That's what I love. Like those two little characters, like the clothes they're wearing, they look like tired cops not being paid enough. And I love that. Like that's the little details in a movie where you could have got just some regular guys to pull some crappy lines. You could have got anyone. It's like the Wayne's World 2 joke. Like, I know it's not important, but couldn't we get someone better? Like,
yeah, that's right. They used to know a girl on what do you say? Used to know a girl on Main Street.
Yeah.
But I noticed it again watching it again, John, when I was watching the film the other week there, that how grimy and dirty that police station actually looked as well. It was run down, it was grimy, and it was dirty.
Everything in this movie is grimy and dirty. Every place that they go into, like even though it's LA, not any of the flattering places in LA, the apartment building she lives in, the job she works at, it's just like a regular, it looks like a chain restaurant, and like everything feels like grimy and dirty throughout this entire film. Even when they end up at the factory at the end, like that's what I like a lot about this film. And when I saw it on VHS, like I've seen it in like terrible, it actually felt like that's how the movie should be seen. The effects don't hold up great. There's a lot of stop motion effects in this. I personally prefer that, but still, if someone were to point out, oh, I know where the cut is when they switch to the Arnold, the Arnold props when he's fixing his eye or his arm. I'm like, yeah, it's very obvious where the cut is, but it's part of the charm.
Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, I actually totally agree with you, because we'll go back to what we've said on other podcasts and stuff like that, because the performances are so good and the effects are dated, but they're still hold up enough where you can kind of suspend your disbelief that you can enjoy the movie. And part of it is the dirtiness and the griminess and the grittiness of the movie, which is the big appeal for me about this film. I remember James Cameron saying that a lot of the film takes place at night, and that cost a lot more money, night filming, night shooting, and the producer was always trying to push him to put in more day scenes, but he thought to himself that it would take away from the movie if they'd done that. And he's right, and I like the fact it's like a night movie as well.
Yeah, there's only certain shots in the day that only take place for the most part. I believe it's just when they're outside early in the movie when he goes on the phone and when he buys the guns, and we see Dick Miller in this movie for his one little scene. Hey, you can't do that.
The rifles you can take right now. You can't do that.
Blows him away. Yeah, he was right.
Yeah, which I think it's brilliant that you actually see Dick Miller in this movie, because when I remember watching this going, there's a guy from Gremlins.
Same year, too. And it's funny, speaking of movies that came out the same year with these actors, Linda Hamilton, you brought this up, like you were watching it, I guess, a couple months ago, but Linda Hamilton with Children of the Corn, turns out she literally got done filming Children of the Corn and went right into this movie, because she looks identical to Children of the Corn with that hair.
Oh yes, 100%. When I watched Children of the Corn, it was the first time I actually seen Children of the Corn, and Linda Hamilton is in it, and it's like, to me, there's Sarah Connor.
Yeah. And it's not the same Sarah Connor from like T2. Like this is innocent Sarah Connor.
Yes, and I just love the evolution of Sarah Connor in this movie. She's brilliant in T2. Again, we could talk all night about T2, but we'll stick to T1. But I really love how young she is in this, how she's just this kind of like innocent kind of young woman enjoying life, going to her regular day job, and then this event happens and it just totally turns her world upside down, and she finds this inner strength that she never knew that she would have. And I love kind of the evolution of that character in this movie, which brings me to a question that I want to ask you. Do you think that her and Ginger are more than mortal man deserves?
I think they are.
Okay.
More than a man deserves. I mean, speaking of them getting ready and everything with the headphones on, sharing the headphones, like that's so 80s, man.
It is so it is. She fluffs the hair up at the end, so she
Oh, I
does.
know. After they just wasted a whole bottle of hairspray on themselves.
Spray, which makes me, which I want to ask you a kind of semi-serious question now, though. However, about the, if I can, about the whole kind of like paradox of this movie, which is brilliant. I love how it goes full circle. You know, the future warrior who teaches the mother how to fight, who then teaches the son, that teaches the father. The fact that John would never be if Kyle had never come back. You know, so it's a head scratcher. It's like how was John born in the first place? So I was thinking a couple of scenarios here. First one is Kyle Reese interrupted the actual timeline,
Yeah.
right? By getting her pregnant. It was supposed to be somebody else. So it could. So is it a case then that it didn't matter what son she had, because Kyle had showed her how to fight, that she would have trained this child anyway to be a future resistance leader, or she would have just found this in her strength anyway.
I like to think personally what happened was that because I like how you explained it, how it's literally a circle of it starts with Kyle getting her pregnant and then her giving birth to John. She teaches John everything that she learned from Kyle, and then John teaches Kyle. So it's a circle. Everything ends in the same exact point.
Yeah.
Where it's just but where's the beginning? Like the person who's doing the teaching had to be taught. So it's like all fate, but fate is what you make. All right. So I guess
Paradox.
things can get changed in there and we can still end up, and they explore this in the sequels. That's one thing with the first one is they don't explore this. We don't know. We just know that they just came back. Nothing goes with them. He's able to take this picture, which they answer the picture at the very end, that's perfect. I love that because I like how they answer, like, when was this picture taken? Now we know, just a quick picture taken at a gas station in Mexico. Love that aspect. And then we know that who she ends up meeting in Mexico is the guy who we end up seeing in the sequel too. So it's her character arc, how she ends here, we could actually see her getting to where she is in Terminator 2. Like it starts at the beginning of this movie. It really is a 2-film arc with her.
Oh yeah, listen, the whole unraveling of the mystery of the mystery of this movie is the fact that we meet Kyle Reese and we're not sure who he is. We see the Terminator going about killing people, and then eventually when he takes Sarah and he explains about the future war and stuff like that. And one of the great things that James Cameron does in this movie is that he gets Kyle or Michael Biehn to give us all the exposition during its chase scenes, during mainly action scenes. There's very few scenes that sit still when they're explaining what's happening. He explains it in the car to her at the start about the future war, and then you see him explaining a wee bit more when he's caught by the police in the police station. And then later on, when they escape from the police station, she says about, can you tell me about my son, or tell me what it's like where you're from? And I love the flashback scenes in this movie. I absolutely love them. But in that flashback scene, you actually see him take out a picture of Sarah, and you're like, oh, why does he have a picture of her for? That's odd. And then later on, when they're in the motel, I think it's in the motel, he actually says that John gave me a picture of you once. You were young like you are now. You were sad. I think he says something. I don't know why he gave me the picture, but you're young like you are now, and you were sad. I always wondered what you were thinking about. And as it turns out, we then later at the very end of the movie, when the picture's handed to her, we found out she was actually thinking about him.
Yeah, which is crazy.
It's brilliant.
And we see the picture get burned in that flashback thing. So it's pretty crazy, like how the picture is a big part of the whole entire thing anyway. And also, you brought it up, but those flashback sequences are amazing. And those are what I always imagined Terminator Salvation would piggyback on, was the Terminator 1 and 2 flashback scenes. They're better done in the second one, but I like how they are in this movie. I like how the cars are. I like that they all look terrible, blown out. Again, it's
Yeah.
all at night. These actual machines feel like they would, if you went outside in the day, kill you. Like
Yes.
they can't. There's no way for us to move around. The hunter killers, everything, and then when they're in the base, it just looks like the worst world ever. And
Yeah.
it really does. Like when one of my favorites is I think it's a mother and son or daughter looking at the TV, and then we realize they're just trying to stay warm. There's a
Yeah.
fire in the TV. That always stuck with me.
Yeah, look, that's one of the things that I really like about Terminator. But I prefer Terminator 1 over Terminator 2, and the reason being is the nightmarish kind of outlook and the nightmarish kind of feel to the whole movie. It just feels a wee bit more scarier. You know what I mean? And it's a wee bit more nihilistic, I think, than the second one. But then again, that's probably because of the way the second one ends up. To prevent it by the end of the second one. T2 we see more in, and it's a wee bit more glossier, the future wars and stuff. But I think that James Cameron had the luxury of doing that in the second one, because in the first one, again, it's almost like a mystery to start off with, because it's kind of like when we talked about The Long Good Friday. We don't know what's happening at first. Nothing's been explained to us. As it goes along, Cade Reese explains to us basically why he's there, what the future has in store, what is this thing that's after Sarah Connor, and why. The start of the second one, assuming that you've seen the first one, you already know about it. You know what the future has in store. Plus the reveal of the endoskeleton at the end. That was kind of kept under wraps, kind of like maybe like say the Alien and Alien or the Shark and Jaws. You keep it to the end. So the wait to the end to reveal this metallic endoskeleton, whereas in the first movie he can show that straight off because it's already out of the box. And not only that, his reveal in the second movie is the T-1000, the liquid metal Terminator. So he can show a T-800 at the very start because we're already familiar with that machine. And remember when I watched Terminator 2, I absolutely loved that endoskeleton. I thought it looked so cool. I still do, and I was disappointed that we didn't get that Arnold wasn't stripped down to just a pure endoskeleton by the end of the movie. But as I got older, when I was older, I realized why they didn't do it, because they didn't need to do it, because we needed Arnold at the end of that movie. So we did. And we see the endoskeletons at the start. What's that?
I actually prefer that in T2 because it always was kind of silly to me that he's a clean exoskeleton at the end of T1. Like there's nothing, because they can't, because the technology's not there. Because if he was really in a fire, it would kind of get stripped away in pieces. It wouldn't be like everything is
completely gone.
Completely charred off. There'd be some kind of things lingering on. But I mean, we
Yeah.
do see him on fire, which had to be a stunt guy. I think it's the same stunt guy probably who did like a Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, because it looks like a guy in a suit on fire again, because they did practical effects with Stan Winston. But man, imagine that. Oh, we're gonna light you on fire at work today.
Yeah, and apparently he loved it. Like, I mean, I think it was the same guy. I heard it was the same guy that done Nightmare on Elm Street, and he also done The Thing.
Yeah,
as
he
well.
doesn't mind getting lit on fire for long periods of
Yeah,
time.
but see that one on Nightmare on Elm Street. He was only supposed to. They were supposed to light him. He was supposed to remember they were in the basement.
Yeah.
He was supposed to run up the steps, and that was it. Then they would be like, they put him out. But what he done was, if you watch the movie, it's been a while since I've seen Elm Street, a couple of years now. But apparently he runs up the steps, falls down the steps, and then runs back up them again, and then they put him out. He wasn't supposed to do that, but he's meant to give a signal, with the put him out. But that's what he did, and this says it was crazy. They thought it was too long, but yeah, this was the same guy that done the fire at the end of the Terminator. But the thing with the endoskeleton, as you know yourself, John, the thing with the endoskeleton was that was the dream that James Cameron had that gave him the idea of the Terminator. He was sick. He was in Italy making Piranha 2, and he was sick, and he was in bed, and he had this fever dream of this metallic skeleton coming out of the flames. And he started thinking, where would this thing come from? And he thought, well, it would have had to have come from the future. And every time Stan Winston tried to design this endoskeleton, James Cameron was always saying, no, it shouldn't be like that. You should do this and you should do that. Stan Winston said in the end, he just went to Cameron every time and went, what do you think this part of the body should look like? Just give me a quick sketch here, and we'll add it, or we'll try and fix it up the best way we can. And he says every sketch he done, he would bring it back to his studio and say, there you go. That's exactly the way we'll have to make it. And he says, so James Cameron basically designed the endoskeleton, and Stan Winston says, I will continue to take credit for it.
Well, yeah, I actually read that exact thing. Like he said that basically it just ended up still looking like James Cameron's original from the dream that he had when he was making Piranha 2. So that's the thing. He's the director. He's got a vision in his mind, and he saw that vision completely through.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great that he put it in his movie. You know, I watched the making of recently for the first time in years, and there was paintings that he had actually done. Yeah, the capture Stan Winston creating it physically captured it pretty well. And I go back to what I was saying about the exposition as well. I want to touch on this too, is that, you know, I don't want to take anything away from the sequels, because I do love T2, but I also think that if you're an infiltration unit, you shouldn't look the same. It was always my idea that, and I think it may have been Cameron's idea at the start, that the Terminators might have had all the same endoskeletons, but on the outside they look different. So they're not all going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And you see that in the flashback scene when Reese has the picture and the Terminators break into their bunker, and you can see two Terminators and they don't look like Arnold. I think one of them is actually Franco Columbo, which was Arnold's best friend who used to do the bodybuilding with. So this whole idea that they all that T-800 has to look like Arnold is nonsense. It's ridiculous, you know, which is why I always thought is that they could have made more Terminator films, but with people that weren't Arnold Schwarzenegger. When Arnold was getting too old for the role, because I understand that he's box office, you know.
Yeah, I actually 100% agree with you, and I never thought of it like that. So when they were actually doing that in Salvation, I think that's the first time we see it. No, they have a deleted scene in 3 where they show it too, and I guess the fact he comes back as an 800 and 850, it's always supposed to be the same skin, but I always just kind of wrote that off as that's what John would recognize him as if they're sending it back, where the 800 can have other skins over the exoskeleton, which is the same. I felt like that would always just make the most sense because you would want, if you're going to send more than one back or you have more than one out there, why would you want them to look the same? Like they even says in this one, you know, the 600 series, he's not saying that they look the same. He's saying that it was rubber skin. We spotted them easy. He recognized the
Yeah.
rubber skin. He doesn't recognize the whole being.
Yeah, exactly. Everything you want to know about the future war or about Terminator lore, in my opinion, is in this film. And I think that, look, love Terminator 2, and Arnold was talking to James Cameron for years about getting Terminator 2 off the ground and making a sequel before they actually got round to doing it. So Arnold was always going to be in the second one, but I think at the time, like, you know, the talk was, well, Jesus, well, how do you bring Arnold Schwarzenegger back? Oh, I know. All the T-800s, 101 models look like Arnold. And that's how they just got round it, because you got to bring Schwarzenegger back for the box office. And that's understandable. However, taking the first movie as an isolated film, my understanding is that they didn't all look like Arnold. And that's scarier because you don't know who's going to be a Terminator then. Yeah.
That's how I like to think of it. I really like to just think of it in my mind that the only ones that come back, at least in the, you know, if we're just ignoring everything after 3, because then they basically give you all the answers anyway. If I like to pretend that John Connor, they just send this one that looks like Arnold back for John Connor because of the emotional connection, because we can tell that it doesn't have the same memory, the same features, especially with 3. It's an 850 series. So it's a little bit different in that sense. But they still look like Arnold aging. I do like how they try and write in that they do age. That would make sense if it's real skin grown for the Terminators, like that they would age. And so that you would think that if it's real skin, real hair, all that stuff is going to age naturally. It's everything underneath will stay the same.
Yeah, look, you know, as things evolved, and that I liked all those type of ideas, because they bring that in the second one as well. Because what I like about this one too is how, like, in the first one is how is like when he does get damaged, he does all the surgery on himself. And he's slowly rotting. So remember when the guy comes to the door and says, "Hey, you got a dead cat in there?"
Yeah, he's a fly flying around too. That means it's
on his
head.
Yeah, it's rotten. Yeah. Whereas in the second one, Sarah Connor says to the Terminator, "Will this heal up?" And he says, "Yes." And she says, "Good. You're not much good to us if you don't do human." But in this one, you can see him slowly deteriorating. You know, he's the surgery he's doing on himself is more functionality rather than looks, because he's just covering it up. He's putting the shades on to cover his eye. You know what I mean? It's his arm's damaged. He's fixing his arm. His eye, he can't see out his eye properly, so he pops the eye out. That's all about functionality. You know what I mean? It's not about look or try. Obviously, yes, he's an infiltrator and he wants to blend in, but it's not kind of like, oh, I hope this is going to heal up. It's just like, I'll cover it up. He doesn't care about how he smells. He doesn't really, because he can't smell it. You know what I mean? He doesn't care if the flesh is rotten, but humans are going to smell it and go, "Gee, that smells horrible. What's going on there?" You know. But I love his responses when he says, "Have you got a dead cat in there?" Yes, no, or what? And I think one says "fuck you, asshole," and the one below it says "fuck you." So I think that goes back to at the start of the movie, where the punk says to him, "Fuck you, asshole."
Yeah, that's his artificial intelligence learning. So he probably only had it plugged in as yes, no, or what. And now the system is like, okay, this is what people in 1984 speak like. So it plugs in the
Yeah,
other options for him to choose from. And he probably goes something with the cadence of his voice. And then it's like, oh, it's aggressive. I'll respond aggressively. Fuck you, asshole.
yeah, yeah. And he says that in that robotic voice as well. "Fuck you, asshole."
Yeah, and the guy's just like, all right, this because that place looks like a shithole anyway, so he probably doesn't
Yeah.
care.
I love that scene afterwards when he walks out just carrying the AR. I think it's the AR-18. He's just carrying it like having the shades on, and he's bleeding, but his leg's still bleeding and his chest is bleeding. And you see the guy in the hallway going, "Damn!"
Yeah, of course. Like, what would you do if you saw that thing walking down towards you with guns and everything?
Fucking right, I know. But here, it brings me back while it's still in my head here. I'm sorry to circle back to this again. So, about the pregnancy thing, this was the other thing I was going to ask, right? What if the guy on the phone who was supposed to have the date with Sarah is actually John's father and Kyle Reese interfered?
Well, her whole life flipped upside down after this incident because she doesn't return to work. Ginger's dead, her apartment. So it's possible that if something didn't, if the term, because how do you think about this? Does the Terminator always go back in time? Like, no matter what in 1984, was there an initial run through where it doesn't, and then she got knocked up and that became John Connor? Maybe it is that guy who she was supposed to have the date with that canceled on her. It's
Yeah.
possible, like, but now this kind of changed things up with it being Kyle. Like, maybe this is the second run through. Like, it's when you start poking holes and start thinking about it. Every time movies got so many issues. I don't think any movie has ever been able to nail the rules of time down perfectly because, I mean, there's nothing to match it up against to logically because it's never happened.
Okay, well, what if Matt was having an affair with Sarah and he's the father?
Oh, well, that would be fascinating.
What if she was already pregnant? What if Kyle wasn't actually the father? She was already pregnant. She didn't know.
I kind of always thought she was a virgin. She seems very innocent, and she's only 19 years old in this movie, supposedly. So, women just looked older back then. Like, they didn't
Yeah.
look like she doesn't look like a teenager, but supposedly she is. So,
Yeah.
I always kind of thought that because that love scene, it's very 80s, and she looks like she's in pain. So,
and Kyle is a virgin as well because she says,
oh, he's
"Is
not
there
getting
anybody
up.
special?" And he says, "Never."
Yeah.
I think he was a player. I think he was lying.
You think he was lying? I always looked
He's
at
a
him
player.
as a little schoolboy, honestly, like because all he's known is war in his whole life. I feel like he doesn't know much, especially the way like he reacts to like certain questions. Like he'll be like, "No," like just very like innocent and quiet, like
Uh,
surprised. Yeah, and his
because
eyes
she's
open.
because she says, "What are the women like?" And he's like, "Good fighters." And she's like, "No, no." She's like, "No, no, no, don't mean that. I mean, what are they like?"
And I think that's what she likes about him is that he is very innocent, and he's not trying to manipulate her
Yeah.
or anything like that. He's actually genuinely cares about her safety, so maybe that's what attracts her to him, and that's how they end up having sex.
Well, yeah. I've thought about this too because this is the thing about you think about these things in these movies. I think there's a bit of Stockholm syndrome there too, though.
Oh well, she's there. Her mind is not in the right frame. She's not in the right frame of mind. Her whole life changed
Yeah.
like in a day.
Yeah, I actually, what you're saying there about time travel and stuff like that, I did read a book on Back to the Future a load of years ago. And they went into like different scenarios about time travel. So that's what I'm saying about it's a paradox. So basically now it's been years since I've read this book. They went into all these different types of scenarios of how time travel works, right? So for example, there's this theory about if you go back in time to kill your grandfather, will you even exist in the first place to go back and do it, right? But there's also this other theory, for example, that this is 2024, so right now, what's happening in, say, for example, 2034 is happening at the exact same time.
Yeah, I mean, there is that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah. So you said earlier about, did the Terminator always go back? So the fact of 1984 is happening, and 2000, what was it, 2029 or
Yep.
2029 is happening at the exact same time. So the Terminator and Cade Reese always went back because that was the future that was going to happen. So they were always went back. So that's how John was created, because he was always going to be created by Cade, because Cade always went back. There was no other timeline where Cade didn't go back. And that's what they call, I think that's what they call a paradox.
Yeah, exactly. It's always going to happen. It's a full circle moment, and
Yeah.
there's no way to avoid it. It happens at every single timeline. I mean, they're talking about this in the MCU, DCEU now all the time, where we have the multiverse, like all these timelines are happening at different times. I mean, in the original movie, despite all this stuff going on, the movie never feels bigger than it actually is. It still feels like a small movie made on a low budget. Just all the locations they shot on,
Yes.
it doesn't feel big, and yet it's this big. The whole world is at stake in this movie, but it never feels like it because it all takes place this one night or one day rather, and we know who the mark is and we know who's chasing her, and that's it. It's such a simple movie with such deep themes and such a big premise at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And not to compare to other movies, because I do love RoboCop, and I think we talked about the humanity in that movie is what makes it endure. And I think that, as you say, that's what makes, I think, the themes of Terminator, the first Terminator, apart from it definitely being a well-made, crafted movie, even when the special effects are dated, that's that makes it endure and makes people relate to it. It's the bigger stakes of humanity and what is at stake. I'll be honest with you, I've seen this movie so many times over the years, and watched it again for the pod a couple of weeks ago, and the ending is very emotional when you think about Sarah and Kyle, and what they actually had to kind of fight against and weren't able to live their lives out. You know what I mean?
His death is sad when he dies. It's very sad. It's shocking. Like you think he's gonna survive because he didn't die that first time, and she's like, "On your feet, soldier." When
Yeah.
we get to hear that line, like we now know that she's toughening up instead of being that little innocent girl. So the lessons were working, and you think, okay, maybe they'll make it to the end, because when you watch it originally, you don't know he's gonna die, and then he does.
Yeah.
And it's like he's dead. His eyes are stuck open and everything like that. And you feel bad now. She's got to do it all on her own. And and this is the first guy she definitely fell in love with, and they fell in love fast.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I think that's what I was trying to say, because you can tell they're in love, even though I know it's a movie at the end of the day, but they've only known each other 24 hours, and the fact that his life was cut short, trying to protect her, it is kind of sad. When we talked about the picture earlier, you see how the picture was actually talking about seeing the picture burning, but you see how the picture was produced, and then you see the end of the picture. So you kind of, in periods of this movie, see the lifespan of the picture, and it's very emotional.
Yeah, it tells the entire arc of basically for the picture, and like you said, she's thinking about him, so he had the picture, and he's sitting there like wondering what she's thinking, and he has
Just
no
thinking about,
idea. She's actually
yeah,
thinking about him. Will I tell you about your father? That's a tough question. I love that whole scene with the storm. Is the storm coming? I know.
yeah, I know, yeah. It's an accident. And I'll be honest, I watched Terminator 2 last night again, and as you said earlier at the start of the pod, the T2 was your favorite growing up. So that's what I was going to say earlier. So eventually, when I got to see T2 and I seen it on Sky Movies, I was too young to go to the cinema to see it. And I know that my mum and dad got a pirated version of it, but they wouldn't let us watch it. And then it came on Sky Movies about a year later, and we recorded it off Sky Movies, and we were allowed to watch it. Me and my younger brother, but I say we, because we were like that. We were always together and done everything together, and we eventually were allowed to watch it, and it blew me away. And for many years, I would have probably considered T2 to be the better movie. Now, don't want to offend anybody, because I know people can be precious about the movies they love, but for many years now, I've said the Terminator 1, for me, I would say prefer it. I don't want to say it's a better movie. It's like Godfather 1 and 2, which one you prefer, in my opinion. And but just watching this one, the first one 2 weeks ago, and watching 2 last night, I enjoyed watching 1 again more than watching 2.
I mean, that's how I've always felt since I've really become like an adult. I just did a. It's not again. It's not like Terminator 2 is a bad movie or anything. Like Terminator
No,
2 is still one of the greatest movies of all time, and like Godfather Part 2 is one of
yes,
the greatest sequels of all time. You know,
100%.
no one is faulted for liking Terminator 2 more than Terminator 1. It just comes down to like certain aspects that you like. I feel like Terminator 1 is serious throughout the entire movie. There are no jokes, none of those big blockbuster moments that we have to have
Yep,
in Terminator 2. Everything is shot at night. It doesn't, a lot of Terminator 2 takes place in the daytime. So that's a big
yeah,
swing too. It feels more glossy, more cleaner, while this one feels more darker and grittier. And if you like that
yep,
sort of tone of movie, and if you like LA and seeing LA in movies, like this is one of the best because they don't hit. Yes, they hit the observatory that's in a lot of movies, but other than that, no big landmarks. Like it's more like back alleys, dark roads, dark, crappy hotel rooms, or
yep.
bad diners, all that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I love about this movie. You've hit the nail on the head. I couldn't say it any better. And like you say, it's the Nick Murray's gritty quality I like in this movie. And when I was young and I rediscovered it again, the older I got, is like Arnold in this movie, just that Terminator actually just scares me, or scared me back then, and it's a scary machine, the way it goes through that police station. And one of my favorite parts of the movie too is even when that truck hits him, he's still going. And one of my favorite shots in the whole movie is when he gets into the truck and opens the door and gets in and closes it, and his mate, the mate in the cabin of the truck, thinks it's the driver getting back in, and he's like, "Let's get out of here." And then you see him turning around, and the half of face is gone, and he's just, "Get out."
Yep.
Get out.
Arnold looks so good.
That is amazing, and that effect, and that's just a Stan Winston effect. That's a dummy. That's not even Arnold that does that, which is crazy. That's just one
Well,
of the.
well, he did have the makeup on. He did have makeup on as well. It's intercut.
Yeah, because you can tell when it's the non one because like he'll move a certain way when the truck's about to blow up. You can tell
Yeah,
that's the dummy because it'll just go like back, like,
yeah,
and then when it's the makeup, you could tell because it could turn its head and it'll have a voice.
yeah. It's even when he just gets in, when he first gets into the cabin, because you don't see the right side. And your man goes, "Let's get out of here," and he turns, but then Arnold turns, and you just see the whole side of his face is missing, when you see the metallic, in the eye and stuff. And it just, even for then, it's not as good as the makeup, obviously, in T2, but it still looks really scary and creepy, because like we talked about the flesh and the skin, you can tell that the skin is like dying. It's pale.
Yeah.
It's, whereas in the second one, when he starts getting damaged, he's still the skin doesn't look as pale or as dead. His lips are blue in this. You know
They
what I mean?
wanted it to look still cool in Terminator 2, whereas in Terminator 1, they didn't care if it looked cool. It was supposed to look like dying skin, like he's dying, like the skin on the outside's dying and giving place to the exoskeleton underneath.
Yeah, exactly. And then when they get into the computer factory, it's the whole the endoskeleton. To me, when I was a kid, I just blew my mind watching that thing. I loved it. And even at the end, when they put the pipe bomb and it blows his legs off, and he still keeps going, how he's just dragging himself along after her leg to try and get her, the look on the face and the arm going through to try and grab her. Yeah,
It absolutely will not stop until you
yeah,
are dead, so it doesn't matter.
yeah. Now that's the only bit in this movie. Do you know why there's characters in movies and you kind of go, I wish he would die, or I wish
Yeah.
that, the bad thing would kill him because I don't like him. Like Amir and Jaws, or people say, "Oh, I love to see the shark eat him," but no, it's like, it's just as Zerd says, is that no, he's got to suffer. He's got to see his town crumble around him because he didn't do the right thing. That's kind of his punishment, right? But in this movie, some people might think, "Oh, I wish the Terminator killed the psychiatrist," but I just love how he's leaving, and the Terminator just walks straight past him, and he
Oh.
leaves, and everybody else dies.
Yep, he got lucky so many different times. He doesn't die in T2 either, and then in T3 he's in the same exact spot. I like that he's the same guy in in the first three movies, other than Arnold.
Yeah, well, the thing is with T3, I haven't seen T3 in so long, John, in so long. But I remember he's in the graveyard, isn't he? And he says, "Oh, sometimes you see things you just can't believe have happened." So he's kind of like he kind of got his just desserts in the second one, rather than be killed by a Terminator or killed by Sarah. He's seen it. The thing that he had been saying to her for 10 years. This is all in your mind. This is nonsense. It's a delusion. He's seen it with his own two eyes. I always kind of thought in the second one, he would rationale that what he's seen.
You would think that like he would like be able to communicate a little bit more with Sarah because he knew her back then with Kyle, but it was weird how he kind of becomes more of a villain and like is just in complete disbelief. I felt like he should have been a little bit more warmer towards her too.
Oh yeah, he became one of the villains in the second movie. Just real nasty, arrogant, ignorant person. But what I'm saying is that I reckon that him as a scientist who spent the last 10 years telling her that it was a delusion, I think he would try and rationale in his brain what he's seen in the second one of the T-1000 coming through the bars and Arnie being shot in the back, and the fact that Arnie took out all those guys. He would rationale in his brain it was maybe it was a bit of poison get into his bloodstream and he hallucinated.
Yeah.
I reckon that's what he would do.
Yeah, that probably makes a lot of sense. And you know what? I've realized he called his shot in this movie. Actually, he said that when he was when Kyle was saying all this stuff, and he's like, "It's brilliant. You don't even need a rash of proof. I can make a career off this." He did.
Yeah, and he did. He did. Uh-huh.
That's
Uh-huh.
funny. It's funny how that's James Cameron for you though. He's a smart guy, James, and he pays attention to the little details like that. And he's a perfectionist in a lot of ways, and that's why when he talks about Terminator 1, which I'm afraid he'll go in and try and touch things up, you can tell there was things he wanted to do, but he just couldn't afford to do it.
Well, that's one of the things that I 100% wanted to touch on when we were talking here, and I meant to watch them back again. I never got a chance to, but I can remember some of them was the deleted scenes for Terminator 1, and I have always said that Terminator 2 is just an expensive remake of T1 because he wanted to have, as you say, the liquid metal Terminator in the first movie. He couldn't do it, right? He wanted the Terminator to be the type of machine that blended in, like the T1000 did in the second movie. He decided to change that up for Arnold. The biggest deleted scene in the first movie was Sarah had the idea to go and destroy the computer factory, Cyberdyne Systems. And Kyle Reese talked her out of it. So eventually they go and do that in the second movie. Another deleted scene from the first movie that I loved as well, and it just shows you the seeds were there because in the first movie you don't realize that the factory they're in is actually Cyberdyne Systems.
Yeah.
But there's a deleted scene that says, "Oh, what's this? What have we found? Get it down to the lab and get it checked out." That was omitted. It's only in the second movie you find out, oh, that factory is in Cyberdyne Systems. And when you see that in the second movie, you think it was just created for the second movie, but it wasn't. The nucleus was there in the first movie. Another wee deleted scene I love as well, John, is the fact that Lieutenant Traxter actually believed him. When you watch, and when you see that deleted scene, if you watch his performance when Kyle is being interviewed, you can see it. He's the only one sitting there quiet, kind of thoughtful and pondering and taking in everything he's saying. And when the psychiatrist and Lance Henriksen are kind of making fun of him, he's telling them to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the deleted scene, if you remember, he's not dead when he's shot by the Terminator, and he hands Sarah a gun. That's where Kyle gets the gun from. There's a gun, and you don't know where he gets it from. You assume it was in the car he stole. It was from Lieutenant Traxter, who actually handed her the gun and says, "Sarah, take this."
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, you can actually see that in his performance because Lance Henderson doesn't shut up. Even like when it's just the two of them and the psychiatrist in there, he's like trying to quiet him down because he just keeps talking. He's trying to listen to him.
Yeah, he's just taking the piss out of him because he just doesn't believe him, and who would?
That's the thing. It's like when people like watch movies like this and they're like, how do you not believe him? It's like if somebody came up to you right now with this exact story and they were trying to plead with you and doing anything they can for you wouldn't believe them. Nobody in their rational state of mind. I would need proof. I really would. I'm sorry.
And that even goes back to what I said about your man, the psychiatrist. I can't even remember his name, John, in the movie. To be honest with you,
Dr.
I,
Silverman.
Dr. Silverman. I did know it. I just couldn't think of it there. That's why his appearance in the third movie is an in joke. It's a glorified cameo. But in my mind, I think to myself that he would rationale what he's seen was an hallucination. He wouldn't believe it. Although I suppose, on the purest terms, from a filmmaker point of view, we are supposed to assume that now you've seen the Terminators, now you must believe. But in my mind, I go, nah, he still wouldn't believe. He'd say, oh, I was poisoned. I was hallucinating.
No, for his character, it makes more sense for what you're saying, but the movie definitely wants us to believe because they built him up as this guy who never believes. He has to see it for him to believe, and that's why you see like the pen fall out of his mouth and everything like
Yeah.
that. He's finally coming to the realization now, like, oh, she wasn't lying, and he'd have a hard time because like he helped her escape. Now he's gone. It's the same guy because now they got to have footage of him being the same guy from 1984 who
Yeah.
killing, so it's got to be like, I don't know how I rationale this anymore. It's going to be hard for him to explain it, that's for sure.
Yeah. He'd end up in one of his own cells.
Yep, they're going to be like, all right, Dr. Silverman, that's it. You go inside too now. There's no such thing as
Yeah.
the Terminator.
And then that guard would be licking him up the face.
Oh, that always bothered me. But then as you get older, you're like, no, there probably are psychos out there that have done things like that.
Oh, listen, I have no doubt that a lot of people have been abused or probably still being abused in places like that by people taking advantage of their position,
People
without a
want
doubt.
I mean, they explored that in other movies too. Like, what's that? Kill Bill Volume 1. They have it similar.
Yeah.
Little bit,
Sleepers.
little bit worse. Sleepers. Sleepers is the
Mhm.
worst of them. That's why I still have a hard time trusting Kevin Bacon. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not his fault, but he plays a monster in that movie.
Listen, man, I remember the first time I seen that. I seen that actually in the cinema. I was staying with my cousin one night, and we went to the cinema, and we were too young to get in to see it. I think it was like a 15, and we didn't know what to see. We did when we went, what's that one, Sleepers? And we were like, oh look, Robert De Niro's in it. Must be a gangster movie.
Oh my god.
We're sitting down and we're watching this, and it's kind of like Once Upon a Time in America or something. The Godfather. The Godfather. You're like, oh, it's built up the gangster movie, and then when he brings him down underneath, and they're like, what do you want? And he says what he wants. And I didn't know where not to say it. He's like, a blowjob. Me and my cousin were like, what the fuck? We were only like 12 or something. You know what I mean? And we were like, our 13, going, oh, Jesus Christ. But see when they go in and they shoot him. That was one of the most satisfying scenes that I've ever seen in a movie ever.
That's one of my favorite lines in movie history, actually. He's like, what do you guys want? What I've always wanted, to watch you die, and then just shoots him. I love
Shoots
that.
him up. Shoots him. Didn't he shoot him in the groin under the table?
Yeah, under the table. And they were
Under
big
the
shot
table?
gangsters, those guys now, because of what he made them. He made them monsters like himself.
Yeah, because of what they went through. Yeah, exactly. Oh, it is a great film. I haven't seen it in many years. I really enjoyed that movie.
I love Sleepers. Love it. I saw that way too young too, because my dad really liked that movie. Because my dad, like every year, he'll find one movie he really likes, and it was Sleepers. He talked about it all the time, and then I saw it, and I was like, it was the first time I ever really recognized Kevin Bacon. He scarred. I was scarred because now every time I see Kevin Bacon, I think of him from Sleepers.
Do you know what? I agree. I think it was the first film I seen Kevin Bacon, because I haven't seen, what was the Flashdance? No, his name Flashdance.
Footloose.
Oh,
Yeah.
Footloose. Because I've never seen Footloose or anything like that. I know he's very famous for that. And like, I remember, I think the next one I seen him in was like, well, Tremors. I'd seen him in Tremors then after that. And I had seen Hollow Man, which I really liked Hollow Man when it came out. And he was the bad guy in that as well.
Yeah, it's just, and every time I see interviews, and I'm like, oh, he seems like the coolest celebrity. Like I saw something with him in a supermarket the other day, but I can never shake that thing with him from Sleepers out of my head.
Yeah.
I'll never
He was so good, but in that movie, see, if an actor, that's what I always say about, it's like when you watch a TV show or something, and you turn and you go, like Janice from The Sopranos springs to mind.
Oh yeah,
Really,
hate
yes,
her.
unlikable person. However, that's what the character's supposed to be. So she is doing an amazing job, and it's the same with Kevin Bacon when he plays these type of unsavory characters. You literally don't like, you hate him. You literally don't like him.
Yeah, but I imagine people probably aren't like us and probably knew Kevin Bacon before and were like, oh, he's just playing a role. Whereas like people like Janice or Skylar White from Breaking Bad, or like, I don't know if you've seen Game of Thrones, but the kid who played Joffrey, like they would get
Yes.
they would get abused by like fans and stuff to the point like the kid who plays Joffrey doesn't even act anymore because he's he was getting just he couldn't take all the hate that he was getting, not people not realizing, I'm playing a role here. That's not me, the human being.
Yeah, that young fella, I can't remember his name. He was in Batman Begins. He's in a
Yeah.
it was yeah, he's in a wee scene in Batman Begins. Yeah, he's actually from down south. He's from Republic of Ireland.
Yeah,
So yes,
I forget what his name is. It's like Jake something or Jack. It starts with a G. Ah, man. But yeah, I feel bad.
yeah,
Jack Gleason, I might be or something like that. I don't know. But
might
I
be
always,
yeah.
I always felt bad for him because he like pretty much stopped acting because of like the hate mail he got. Meanwhile, he's doing an incredible performance. His goal's for you to hate him.
Yeah, exactly. And he was hate for seeing you're watching going, I only watched the first 4 series of Game of Thrones, but you are watching, you're thinking, I hate him. I wish somebody would poison him or shoot him with a bow and arrow or anything, push him out of bloody out a castle window.
Yeah.
But that's exactly the fear which Arnold's agent had for him when he was making the Terminator. The fear was that you're playing the bad guy, and this isn't good for your career. Whereas he's seen the potential of playing the bad guy, and of course there was other people saying it's the title role. He's playing that he's going to be on the poster. It's the title role.
It was absolutely the right choice for him to do this movie, and he made the right decision by doing it. I mean, how many he literally got a catchphrase that he says in every movie after this, "I'll be back."
Yeah,
When you say it in all the other movies, not many roles like, I think Bruce Willis with Yippee Ki motherfucker, they'll say that in other movies too, as like a little joke. When you get a line like that you bring it over to other movies, like you've hit superstardom, and all that's to the Terminator. And
yeah,
I have to ask you before we get out of here because we haven't talked about it, but one of my favorite scores, Brad Fidel's.
absolutely love the score. Loved the score the first time I heard it. The opening theme, is just it's aggressive. It's dark. It's I love all the metallic sounds in it as well of the machine. I feel as if this first movie, the score is more, as we've said before, it's more daunting.
Yeah.
They use a lot more kind of the synths and the machine-like sounds rather than the sequel, which goes down towards more not orchestral, but it was a wee bit more kind of what would you say, emotional or humanitarian themes.
It's just like how the whole Terminator goes from Terminator 1 to Terminator 2, just in every aspect, it's got to be bigger. Terminator 2 score feels like, he did it with other people. It feels like it was recorded with a big, like you said, like with an orchestra. Like it feels
Yeah,
bigger. Whereas this feels like he could have just did this himself at a desk with a synthesizer.
yeah, exactly. And there's a military kind of theme as well, under theme as well, which he does for Ked Reese when he goes back to his flashbacks in the future as well. Which I really like, but I mean, I love the whole theme as well. My favorite scene in the movie, of course, is the police shootout, and that whole kind of Terminator theme through it. That whole scene as well is brilliant, and how it picks up at the end when they're actually escaping from the police station.
Yeah, they're actually very hesitant with using the theme. They use it with the opening credits, which is why it's my favorite opening credits in a movie ever. Is using it and just having the blinking green light and having it disappear while I play the theme. Then you're right, they don't use it again until the police station. We don't hear it, and then towards the end of the movie. Other than that, they have other themes like sprinkled throughout with the synthesizer. And
Yes,
one of my favorites is actually the romantic theme when they're having sex. I actually really like that piece of music.
yeah, where it's just played on the piano.
Yeah, I really like that. It feels different from the rest of the movie, and it feels emotional.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah, and that I suppose that has to be the most kind of human sounding theme in the movie, just played with the piano, very basic, very simple for the love theme. I just feel as if the rest of the score is very raw, and as I said before, raw in a kind of machine type of way, and of course that goes along with the whole overarching theme of the whole movie. But look, I suppose in a lot of ways this movie's a love movie, a love story as well, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a love story in there. That's why I always said Terminator really does have it all. It's got a horror, it's got drama. The only thing it doesn't have is comedy. but you got a good romance in there. But yeah, no, this movie lacks any sort of comedy that they definitely tried to bring in the Terminator 2. And some of that stuff with Edward Norton, when we do Terminator 2, we'll talk about it. It's a little bit cringy to me nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Look, you say there is certain wee bits of comedy in this. You touched on it yourself earlier, just about, but it's not cheesy. Like the cops having the banter, bouncing off each other. Arnold pulling somebody away from the phone, and you hear the guy in the background going, "Hey man, you have a real attitude problem," because he's not gonna go and fight him. He's just gonna call him names from a distance far, far away. Do you know what I mean? Like Arnold telling the guy, "Fuck you, asshole." You know what I mean? There's things like that, but it's not on the cheesy side of things, as you said, or the big blockbuster side of things. It's just those wee kind of humorous moments.
You're
But you're saying,
absolutely right. That's absolutely what they feel more human or more natural. Like with the cops going back and forth. Like how many people have done that with their regular buddies or work buddies? You get a friend at work and you just start ripping on each other.
yeah, and as we said earlier, when the psychiatrist is there and they're taking the piss out of Kyle Reese when he's being serious, but do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like you could believe that. Like we said earlier, if somebody came and told you that, would you be going, "This guy's nuts"? This guy's not ways. But getting back to the score as well, there, John, I'm trying to articulate it in the best way I can with the score, with my limited vocabulary. But you were saying there about the opening theme as well. Yes, I love how at the end of the theme when you hear the metallic hitting off something, that dong. And it goes off into the distance. But then later on, when they're in the police station, you hear throughout that. But I remember you're saying about how they don't really play the big Terminator theme much throughout the movie. But he said that, I don't know if you've seen this interview, he actually said that when Kyle Reese goes in and rescues Sarah, that when they were leaving the police station, he had the da 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 playing over it. And when James Cameron heard it, he just went, "Nope, get rid of that. Don't want it in there. It's too triumphant."
No, he plays the slowed down version where it's just dun dun. I actually love how they close out that scene with him walking behind him and they just get away and it fades to black as the car goes around the corner
Yeah.
and he's still walking towards them.
Yeah, it's the music is kind of like, and you hear the kind of like a kind of behind it. But you're right. I love Arnie's walking about with the guns, kind of looking in the rooms, looking for them. But when he hears them drive off in the car, he kicks the door open and gets up and just shoots, and then they're away.
Yeah.
And then
he's looking at the guns, he's reloading it, and he just starts walking whatever direction they just went. He's like, "All right, that's it. On to the next one. Forget all the people he just murdered."
Yeah, the hell with them.
Yeah. Done with them. I'm here for her.
Yeah, exactly. And again, just touching on Arlo too, is his kind of performance in this. I know he gets a lot of stick for being a serious actor, but his performance in this as a robot, the people will say it's easy for him to do, but it's not. I would say it is, but I think that in this movie, just how smooth and stuff he makes it look. Wow, is in his movements, how smooth it is, and he's not jerky, and and not only that, when he's walking about with that shotgun and machine gun, one in each hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only Arnold could pull that off without it looking silly. Because if you
Yeah.
did that with a prop gun for someone smaller, the guns would look too big in their hands. Whereas his hands, that looks like, okay, he could do that.
Yeah, and even the Uzi as well. How when he's in the nightclub and he pulls the Uzi out. I mean, I don't know. I've never fired an Uzi, but I believe that you would probably have to use both hands to fire it. Because it'd be a powerful wee weapon. But no, he's standing there, one hand down by his side and one hand up like that, just firing. You know what I mean? And it doesn't even move.
He's got no kickback on it, not at all, because he's that strong. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love that in T2 as well. I mean, I'm tall, but I'm very lean. And I know if I was holding even the gun he had in T2 in my hand, it would look big. But I just love how he holds that pistol in his hand in T2. It just looks like a pea shooter.
Yeah, I love that. And all of us, when we were kids, I don't know if you did it, but you had like a BB gun and you always try and do the flip reload like he would do with the shotgun. And you find out
with the shotgun.
That's impossible. You can't actually do that. Like it had to be worked for that. But a Terminator, I'm like, well, no, a Terminator could do that because he doesn't have to worry about strength.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that gun in the second movie was modified, like you said, there just so he could do that because the gun couldn't actually do that. But you believe it because Terminator's doing it. Yeah, Terminator can do that.
Yeah, Terminator doesn't have to obey by the regular laws of physics like the rest of us in strength. It could just do stuff like that.
Yeah, like the rest of us mere mortals.
Yeah, he's not immortal.
Yeah,
Well, it takes
exactly.
a while for him to become mortal.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, I think we covered everything here. We've been going for an hour and a half.
Yep, no problem. Yep, I think we have covered it.
Yeah, and the Terminator to me, my closing thoughts, it's still the greatest film of all time. A lot could be argued that I don't let it pass. I don't let a movie go past it just for nostalgic reasons, and that to a certain point that is true. You can never replace those childhood memories I had with this movie, so it'll always be at number one for me, just because of everything it's done for me throughout my life.
John, listen, if this is your favorite movie, I mean, every time you watch it, you get joy out of it, and it brings back a lot of those nostalgic memories. Then don't let anybody tell you otherwise, mate, because I have those exact same nostalgic feelings for Jaws. You know what I mean? And Jaws too, and Terminator, yes, is on that list for me too, is part of that nostalgic kind of feelings as well. But see, aside from that, it is an excellent, excellent movie. As I said, it's in my top 10. It's one of my favorites of all time. And talk about nostalgia, I just want to touch on it since you brought it up, is that I had the computer game when I was a kid, and I think it was for the Master System. It was either the Master System or the Mega Drive, and it had, because my VHS was recorded off the television, it had the poster on the front of the actual game um, casing, and that poster of Arnold holding the gun with the glasses and the leather jacket with the red stripes behind him,
I love
the
that.
black and the red stripes, yep, and it's saying the Terminator in the with the blue around it. See, just seeing that brings a lot of nostalgic memories back for me, and I think that's absolutely epic.
Yeah, there's just certain things and certain images like that that'll do it. And like talking about you and Jaws, like I get that guy I was working with had an ET shirt on the other day, and it just seeing the ET logo and that font, kind of slightly on its side, I get taken back to that world.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly.
Yeah, you're right. Steven Spielberg is a lot of people's Walt Disney because I didn't grow up with really Disney movies either, or the Disney Channel. So you're not wrong on that.
Yeah, that's how I totally describe it. If people, there's a lot of people out there, many women, I suppose, that grew up on Disney, and even as older people, as women, you know what I mean, they still love the Disney movies, and when they have children, they show their children the old classic Disney movies. Whereas me, Spielberg for me is my Walt Disney, and I've showed my daughter a lot of Spielberg movies, whether they're produced or directed. It was really funny the other week here. We were watching The Lost Boys, and no, sorry, we're watching Teen Wolf. She loves Teen Wolf, and
Teen great.
yeah, she loves Teen Wolf. And I says there, where do you rank? I says, so is Lost Boys still your favorite film? And she says, yeah. And I says, where do you rank Teen Wolf? And she says, um, it's my second favorite, but Lost Boys is like way up here, and Teen Wolf's way down there. But it's my second favorite. And I went, all right, what's your top 10? And she says, well, Goonies would be number 3. So
Wow.
it's all movies that I've showed her, dude. And I know that she's probably watched a lot of Disney movies, but she didn't mention one.
Wow, that's good. You're training her well. Like you got her stuck on the '80s movies. That's perfect, and that just
Yeah,
shows me that you just got people got to just show their kids '80s movies, and maybe
yeah.
they'll like them.
John, I just think it's perfect parenting, to be honest with you. So
Yeah, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great
it will
job.
break my heart the day she walks in and goes, Dad, these movies are rubbish."
I don't think it'll happen. Hopefully, like I think more. We just need more people to show their kids it. Like they just dump their kids in front of whatever's on TV, and then you get stuck seeing the Minions movies for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, I can't wait, as I say, to be able to show my daughter the likes of the Terminator and Terminator 2 and Aliens and movies like that. She's a wee bit too young at the minute, but
Yeah,
hopefully she doesn't grow out of wanting to watch movies with her dad, and I can start to show her these brilliant movies.
yeah. I'm sure that at least you get to experience that with her. That's awesome because not everyone gets that. Their kids like other things, and then the thing you love, you still just your own. I know plenty of people like that.
Yeah. Well, I told you before, John, I actually have a replica of the endoskeleton arm, which is boxed away since I moved house 3 years ago. But um, I used to have it sitting in my old house, and I actually set my daughter up sitting beside it and took a photograph of her. she's only a baby sitting beside the Terminator arm.
I actually, one last thing I have the script for Terminator, the final draft that they did. I have it that somebody sent to me here on the channel. Kevin Kruger sent me that a gift last year for Christmas, and it's incredible. Like, it's one of my prized possessions.
Oh, absolutely brilliant! I love things like that. I love reading. Well, I have to really love the movie. Reading like early drafts or second drafts or final draft screenplays, because basically a script is just a blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
So things change even while they're filming, and I love, and even on the in the editing room, things are left on the cutting room floor. The likes of the deleted scenes that we chatted about, they're bound to be in the script, and they could be longer as well. You don't know. So I love reading all those types of things and discovering new things about the movie making process. Yeah.
Screenplays are fascinating, yeah, because like you just said, they're just literally a guide essentially of where they start from. That doesn't mean that's how that scene ends up at the end of the day. There's so many things in the Terminator script that don't even end up like in the movie, like just like
Yeah.
certain lighting decisions that James Cameron wrote on the page. Like just in the opening scene, there was supposed to be a little bit more going on. I think there was supposed to be a cat in the screen originally, and they just cut that out completely on the day of shooting. And it's fascinating that it's a big part of the opening scene of the movie.
Yeah, and they probably cut that because of budgetary reasons, though. Do you think?
Probably, I think, yeah. Well, also probably having to shoot a cat. You got to get a cat there that day. And so they're like, it's not worth it. I could just shoot the truck because it says like, show the cat, then show the truck driver. I'll just shoot the truck driver. He's here. I don't need to go get a cat.
Yeah.
It was a great idea when I was writing it alone, but it's not a good idea now.
I wonder did he want the cat because the truck driver was doing a Vito Corleone impression?
Oh my God, maybe.
He's like, what the hell?
I love that thing. The cigar hanging out of his mouth.
Scarred on it was right. Yeah, for years I always used to think he sounds like Vito Corleone. Think, what the hell?
I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a good time to end it, and we will be back, guys, in a couple weeks with another podcast. And we have I'm not going to spoil it here, but we have a great idea. It's something a little bit different we'll be doing here on the show. So I'm John, and that's David, aka Shamrock Balls, and we hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Let's Talk podcast. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, and it is Friday, and that means it's time for our digital code giveaway. In every single video that we do here on Friday, we're going to ask you guys 2 digital code giveaway questions. All you have to do is answer one of those questions in the comment section below, and as long as you do that, you come back to Tuesday's video, I'll put your name on a magic wheel, I'll spin that bad boy 2 times. The 2 names it lands on, they have their choice of the digital codes that you've seen on your screen before you today. And what am I asking you guys? Well, we just spent an hour and a half talking about the Terminator, and I want to know from you, what is your favorite Terminator movie, and what is your favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? Make sure you guys leave those answers in the comment section below, and while you're down there, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could, turn notifications on. We also have channel memberships if you want to support us that way. We have a friends of the channel tier, we have a producers tier, and we have a directors tier. Under the producers tier, that's where you're going to find John Doe Juggalo, Jason Martin, and Mr. Smelly Potato. Under the directors tier, that's where you're going to find Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews. Head over to Frank's YouTube channel and head over to John Doe Juggalo's YouTube channel. You guys will not regret it. They're great in the world of physical media, and they're both just great guys. But if you got no money to throw our way, don't worry about it. We just appreciate you guys checking out this video. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.